Captain Yuna stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, watching the stars drift past the viewport. She had been doing this job for 15 years now, patrolling the border between human space and the rest of the galaxy. It was boring work most days. That was exactly how she liked it. Boring meant peaceful. Boring meant no one was dying. "Captain, we're approaching Checkpoint 7, said Aaron from the communications station. The young officer was barely 25, fresh from the academy with bright eyes and an eager smile. Yuna remembered being that optimistic once, before the contact wars. "Mark it in the log," Yuna said. "Then run a full sensor sweep of the sector." The Horizon's Edge was a diplomatic vessel, not a warship. It carried no heavy weapons, just enough defensive systems to run away from trouble. That was the deal humanity had made with the Galactic Council 200 years ago. Humans could have their little corner of space, but they had to stay there. No expansion, no military buildup, no threatening the peaceful species who had been traveling the stars for millions of years. The other aliens called humans Deathworlders. They said Earth was a nightmare planet where everything tried to kill you. Too much gravity, poisonous atmosphere, deadly weather. Creatures that hunted each other for food. The aliens couldn't understand how anything could evolve in such a terrible place. But humans had. And that scared the aliens more than anything. Yuna checked her console. On the Council homeworld, billions of light years away, Ambassador Tay was meeting with the alien leaders right now. Tay believed humans could finally be accepted as equals. He thought if they just proved they were civilized and peaceful, the galaxy would embrace them. Yuna wasn't so sure. She had seen the way aliens looked at humans. Fear, disgust, suspicion. It didn't matter how many peace treaties they signed. Some fears ran too deep. "Captain?" Aaron's voice cut through her thoughts. "I'm picking up something strange." Yuna walked over to the communications station. "What kind of strange?" "A signal. Very faint. It's on an old frequency, the kind they used to use thousands of years ago." Aaron frowned at the screen. "No one broadcasts on this channel anymore. Could be interference. Space junk." Yuna leaned closer. "Can you clean it up?" Aaron's fingers danced across the controls. The static cleared slightly and a pattern emerged. 3 short pulses, 3 long pulses, 3 short pulses again. "That's a distress signal," Yuna said quietly. "SOS. "But Captain, this frequency, the last time anyone used this was during the Voss era. That was 50,000 years ago." Yuna felt ice in her stomach. The Voss were legends, stories the older alien species told. An ancient race that had ruled the galaxy once, then vanished overnight. No one knew what happened to them. Their worlds were empty. Their cities were dark. They just disappeared. "Get me Commander Hyun at Border Command," Yuna said. The screen flickered, and Hyun's face appeared. He was older than Yuna, with gray in his hair and scars on his face from the wars. He commanded the human defense fleet stationed at the border. Not that anyone called it a defense fleet. The treaty said humans could only have patrol ships. Everyone knew the truth. "Yuna, what's wrong?" Hyun always knew when something was wrong. "We picked up a distress signal. Ancient frequency. Looks like Voss origin." Hyun's expression didn't change, but Yuna saw his jaw tighten. "Location?" "That's the strange part. It's coming from the Forbidden Zone, the Voss system. That's Council-restricted space. We can't go there." "I know." They looked at each other across the light years. Yuna knew what Hyun was thinking. The same thing she was thinking. Something was wrong. Something big. "I'll report it to the Council," Hyun said finally. "Let them handle it. And if they don't, then we follow the treaty, like we always do." The screen went dark. Yuna stood there, listening to the distress signal pulse through the speakers. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short, over and over again, a cry for help that had been traveling through space for 50,000 years. "Captain," Aaron asked, "what do we do?" Yuna thought about Ambassador Tay and his dreams of peace. She thought about the treaty and the rules humans had to follow. She thought about the aliens who feared them and the borders they couldn't cross. Then she thought about that signal. Someone had sent it. Someone had needed help. And for 50,000 years, no one had answered. "Set a course for the Voss system," Yuna said. "But Captain, that's—" "I know what it is." Yuna turned to her crew. "We're going to investigate. If someone needs help, we help them. That's what humans do." Aaron looked worried, but nodded. The rest of the crew moved to their stations. The Horizon's Edge turned away from the patrol route and headed toward forbidden space. Yuna knew this might start a war. The Council would be furious. They might tear up the treaty. They might decide humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable, too willing to break the rules. But she also knew something else, something the aliens had never understood about humans. On Earth, when someone called for help, you answered. It didn't matter if it was dangerous. It didn't matter if it broke the rules. You answered. Because humans came from a death world, and on a death world, the only way to survive was to stick together. The signal pulsed again. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. "We're coming," Yuna whispered. "Hold on, we're coming." Behind them, in the darkness of space, 3 stealth frigates detached from their hiding positions. Commander Hyun had been patrolling this border for a long time. He knew Yuna. He knew she would do the right thing, even if it was the wrong thing. The frigates followed at a distance, invisible to sensors, ready to back her up. On the Council homeworld, Ambassador Tay was making his speech about peace and cooperation. He didn't know that everything was about to change. He didn't know that his captain had just crossed into forbidden space. He didn't know that a signal from 50,000 years ago was about to wake up the sleeping giant of humanity. The galaxy was about to remember why Deathworlders were so dangerous. Not because they were violent, not because they were aggressive, but because when a Deathworlder heard a cry for help, they would cross any border and break any rule to answer it. The Horizon's Edge jumped to faster-than-light speed, and the journey began. The Voss system looked dead. Yuna watched through the viewport as the Horizon's Edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel. She had expected something, anything, but not this. Thousands of ships floated in the darkness. Ancient vessels, their hulls cracked and cold. Some were massive, bigger than human cities. Others were small, like escape pods. All of them were dead, drifting in the gravity of a yellow star that didn't seem to care. "Scanning now," said Day from the engineering station. He was the oldest member of the crew, a man who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. "Captain, these ships, some of them are 50,000 years old. Maybe older. Any life signs?" "Nothing. They're tomb ships." Whatever killed them did it fast. Aaron worked the communications board, trying to track the distress signal. "The signal is stronger now. It's coming from the 3rd planet." Yuna pulled up the planet on her screen. It was blue and green, with white clouds swirling across the surface. It looked like Earth. Beautiful. Peaceful. Alive. "That doesn't make sense," Day said. "According to the star's age and the planet's orbit, this world should be frozen. The sun isn't hot enough to keep it warm." "But it is warm," Yuna said. "Yes, something is heating it. Artificial heating, maybe. Technology we don't understand." A new voice came over the comms. "This is Commander Hyun. We've been monitoring your position. What did you find?" Yuna wasn't surprised. She had known Hyun would follow her. A graveyard, thousands of dead ships, and a planet that shouldn't exist. "Be careful, Yuna. Whatever killed the Voss might still be there." "I know, But someone is still sending that signal. We have to check. Then check fast. The Council knows you're here. They're sending ships. Yuna felt her stomach drop. How long do we have? 6 hours, maybe less. Understood. We're going down to the surface. The horizon's edge descended through the atmosphere. The planet was eerily quiet. No cities, no lights, just forests and oceans and mountains that looked untouched for thousands of years. The only sign of civilization was near the equator, where massive structures rose from the jungle like metal mountains. They landed near the largest structure. Yuna took a team of 5, including Aaron and Day. She also brought Mira, a scientist who studied ancient civilizations. Mira had been excited for this mission since the moment they detected the signal. "This is incredible," Mira said as they approached the structure. "Look at the architecture. The Voss were masters of energy manipulation. These buildings are still powered after 50,000 years." The entrance was open, as if waiting for them. Inside, the corridors were wide and tall, built for beings larger than humans. Lights flickered on as they walked, responding to their presence. The walls were covered in writing that Mira couldn't read, symbols that seemed to shift and change as you looked at them. "Where's the signal coming from?" Yuna asked. Aaron checked a handheld scanner. "Deep, underground. There's a chamber about 1 kilometer below us. They found an elevator, or something like an elevator. It took them down through layers of rock and metal, down into the heart of the structure. The doors opened to reveal a vast chamber filled with machines. At the center was a holographic display, showing the galaxy in 3 dimensions. "It's a map," Mira whispered. "A star map." Yuna walked closer. The map showed thousands of systems connected by lines of light. But as she watched, the lights began to go out. One by one, entire sections of the galaxy went dark. "What happened to them?" Aaron asked. The hologram changed. A new image appeared. It showed a ship, but not like any ship Yuna had ever seen. It was massive, made of dark metal that seemed to eat the light around it, and it was destroying a planet. "Dear God," Day said. The hologram showed more. It showed hundreds of these dark ships. Thousands. They moved through the galaxy like locusts, consuming everything in their path. Planets were stripped of life. Stars were harvested for energy. Entire civilizations disappeared in days. "The harvesters," Mira read from the Voss writing that appeared on the walls. "That's what they called them. Machines, artificial intelligence. They were created by a race that came before the Voss, but they turned against their creators. They consume everything: biological matter, technology, resources. They take it all and make more of themselves." The hologram showed the Voss fighting back, their vast armada, their powerful weapons, their ancient technology. But it wasn't enough. World after world fell. The Voss ran. They built this beacon, this warning station, to tell anyone who came after them about the danger. "Where are the harvesters now?" Yuna asked. The hologram zoomed out, showing the edge of the galaxy. There, in the darkness between galaxies, were millions of signals, waiting, dormant. "They went into deep space," Mira said. "The Voss drove them back, but couldn't destroy them. The harvesters went into hibernation, waiting for the galaxy to rebuild, waiting for new civilizations to rise. And this beacon?" Yuna felt ice in her veins. "This beacon has been calling them back." "For 50,000 years, Mira confirmed. The Voss wanted to warn the next civilizations, but the signal also woke the harvesters. The hologram changed again. It showed a countdown. 30 days. "They're coming," Aaron whispered. "In 30 days, the harvesters will reach the galaxy." Yuna's mind raced. 30 days. They had to warn the council. They had to prepare. They had to... Alarms blared throughout the chamber. Day checked his scanner. "We have company. Ships. Lots of ships. It's a council fleet." They ran back to the elevator, back up through the structure. As they burst outside, Yuna saw them. Dozens of council ships in orbit, surrounding the horizon's edge. The flagship was massive, bristling with weapons. A voice crackled over the comms. "Human vessel, this is Admiral Thexon of the Council Fleet. You have violated restricted space and activated forbidden technology. Surrender immediately, or we will fire." Yuna grabbed her comm. "Admiral, you don't understand. We found something. The Voss left a warning. There's a threat coming." "We know about the Voss warning, human. We have known for centuries. The question is, why did you activate it?" "We didn't activate anything. We were responding to a distress call." "A distress call you had no authorization to investigate. Your species cannot be trusted with such power. You will surrender all data and personnel immediately." Yuna looked at her crew. Aaron was pale. Day was checking his weapon. Mira clutched her data pad with the Voss information. Through her earpiece, she heard Hyun's voice. "Yuna, my ships are in position. I can get you out. But if we run, there's no going back. The Council will call it an act of war. And if we surrender, they'll bury this, like they buried everything else, and in 30 days the harvesters will come and no one will be ready." Yuna looked up at the Council fleet. She thought about Ambassador Tay and his dreams of peace. She thought about the treaty and 200 years of careful diplomacy. Then she thought about Earth, about the death world that made humans what they were, about the lesson every human child learned: when monsters come, you fight. "Commander Hyun," she said calmly, "get us out of here, and tell everyone to prepare for war, not with the Council." "Then with who?" "With the things that made the Voss run." The council chamber was in chaos. Ambassador Tay stood in the center of the massive hall, surrounded by representatives from hundreds of alien species. They were shouting, all of them. Their voices echoed off the crystal walls in a dozen different languages. But Tay understood them all. They were calling for his arrest, for humanity's punishment, for war. "The humans have broken the treaty. They activated forbidden Voss technology. They put the entire galaxy at risk." Tay raised his hands, trying to speak. "Please, if you would just listen." "We have listened to humans for 200 years, shouted a Kryn counselor, her scales flashing angry red. "You promised peace. You promised to stay in your borders. And now your captain has invaded sacred space and awakened ancient dangers." "Captain Yuna was responding to a distress call," Tay said. "She found evidence of a threat. The harvesters. They're coming in 30 days. The harvesters are a myth." Another voice, from a species Tay didn't recognize. "A story the Voss told, nothing more." "Then why did the Council restrict the Voss system?" Tay shot back. "Why forbid anyone from investigating?" "What were you hiding?" Silence fell over the chamber. The counselors looked at each other. Some looked guilty, others looked afraid. Admiral Thexon stepped forward. The Kryn military commander was massive, his armor gleaming in the light. "We restricted the Voss system because their technology was too dangerous, too powerful. Races like yours, young, aggressive, unpredictable, cannot be trusted with such power." "You knew about the warning," Tay said quietly. "You knew about the harvesters, and you kept it secret." "We maintained stability," Thexan said. "For 20,000 years, the Council has kept peace in this galaxy. We did not need humans bringing up ancient ghosts and causing panic." "But the ghosts are real." Tay pulled up the data Yuna had sent. The hologram appeared in the center of the chamber, showing the harvester ships, showing the countdown. In 30 days, they will reach Council space, and you knew. You've always known. "We suspected," said a quiet voice. An old Velen counselor named Quiath rose from his seat. He was ancient, his skin wrinkled and his eyes tired. "The Council has known about the harvesters for millennia. We found Voss records on other worlds, warnings, but the High Council decided the information was too dangerous, too destabilizing." You let billions of beings live in ignorance of the greatest threat the galaxy has ever faced, Tay said. His voice shook with anger. You condemned them to die unprepared. We were trying to prevent panic, Thexon roared. If every species knew the harvesters might return, there would be chaos, military buildup, war. The council would collapse. So you sacrificed truth for order. Yes. Thexon didn't look away. And I would do it again. Order is what keeps us alive. Order is what separates us from animals. And what separates you from the harvesters? Tay asked. They also value order, perfect, cold order. Everything consumed, everything controlled. Before Thexon could answer, the chamber's alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed across the walls. A junior counselor ran into the chamber, his face pale with terror. Counselors, we have an emergency. The border world of Kellos, it's gone dark. All communications have ceased. Gone dark? Thexon frowned. What do you mean? I mean gone, Admiral. 3 billion inhabitants, 20 orbital stations, all silent. We sent a scout ship to investigate. They arrived 2 hours ago and found nothing. Nothing? The planet is stripped. No cities, no forests, no oceans. Just bare rock. Everything has been taken. The council chamber went silent. Tay felt his blood turn to ice. How long ago did this happen? The last communication from Kellos was 6 hours ago. Whatever did this worked fast. Queeth stood slowly. The harvesters, they came early. Impossible, Thexon said, but his voice was uncertain. The countdown said 30 days. The Voss beacon accelerated their arrival, Tay said. They detected the signal and increased their speed. They're already here. Panic erupted in the chamber. Counselors shouted. Some ran for the exits. Others stood frozen in shock. The careful order of the council collapsed in seconds. Thexon was yelling into his communicator. All fleets, full alert. Mobilize every ship. Prepare defensive positions. But Tay knew it was too late. The council had spent millennia avoiding war. They had no standing army, no battle fleets. Their ships were designed for patrol and show, not real combat. They had relied on peace and diplomacy for so long that they had forgotten how to fight. Queeth appeared at Ty's side. The old Velen pressed something into his hand. A data chip. Everything the council knows about the harvesters, everything we've been hiding, give it to your people. Why are you helping me? Because I have seen what peace without strength leads to. Queeth's eyes were sad. The council is not ready for this war, but perhaps the Deathworlders are. You mean humans? I mean the beings who evolved on a planet that tried to kill them every day, who learned to fight or die, who understand that survival sometimes requires violence. Queeth squeezed his arm. Go home, Ambassador. Tell your people the galaxy needs them, even if the galaxy doesn't know it yet. Tay ran from the chamber. Behind him, he could hear Thexon shouting orders. But the Admiral's voice was panicked now, desperate. Tay reached his ship and launched immediately. As he cleared the Council homeworld, he saw them. Hundreds of Council ships, scrambling to form defensive positions. They looked impressive, powerful, but Tay had studied military history. He knew what real warships looked like. These weren't warships, they were toys. He opened a channel to human space. It would take hours for the message to arrive, but he had to try. This is Ambassador Tay to Human High Command. The harvesters are here. The Council is in chaos. Kellos has fallen. 3 billion dead in hours. He paused. They need our help. I know we have no reason to help them. They've treated us like monsters for 200 years. They've kept us locked in our borders. They've feared us and hated us and never trusted us. He looked at the Council fleet, small and scared and utterly unprepared. But that's what makes us human, isn't it? We help, even when it's hard, even when it's not fair. We help because someone needs helping. The message ended. Tay set course for home. Behind him, another world went dark, then another. The harvesters were spreading like fire across the galaxy, consuming everything in their path. On Earth, in the secret command center deep beneath the mountains, alarms began to sound. Admiral Jin listened to Tay's message. Then he picked up the phone that connected to every human world, every hidden base, every secret shipyard. "This is Admiral Jin," he said calmly. "Protocol Homebound is now active. Wake up the fleet, all of it." Across human space, lights began to turn on. Ships that had been hidden for centuries emerged from their concealment. Weapons that were never supposed to exist powered up. Soldiers who had been waiting their entire lives received their orders. The Deathworlders were going to war, and the galaxy was about to learn what that really meant. The shipyards of Mars had been hidden for 150 years. From space, they looked like mining operations. Boring, industrial, nothing special. But as Admiral Jin's command was broadcast across human space, massive doors opened in the red planet's surface. What emerged made the watching Council scouts scramble to report back. Ships, hundreds of them, thousands. They weren't like Council vessels. There was no graceful design, no artistic curves. These were brutal, functional machines built for one purpose: war. Their hulls were thick armor. Their weapons bristled from every surface. They looked like what they were: warships designed by beings who understood that sometimes the only way to survive was to be the scariest thing in the room. On the bridge of the flagship, Indomitable, Captain Yuna watched the fleet assemble. She had been recalled from the border and given command of an entire carrier group. 300 ships under her command. 300 ships that, according to the treaty, should not exist. "How long have we been building all this?" she asked Commander Hyun, who stood beside her. "Since the treaty was signed," Hyun said. "The Council told us we could only have patrol ships, so we built patrol ships. We just didn't tell them about everything else. This could start a war." "Captain, we're already in a war. Just not with the Council." Yuna nodded. Through the viewport, she could see the massive dreadnoughts moving into formation, the carrier groups organizing their fighter wings, the stealth frigates disappearing from sensors. This was the true strength of humanity, hidden away for 2 centuries while the aliens thought humans were tamed. "All ships report ready," said Aaron from communications. The young officer had been promoted after their discovery at the Voss system. Now he served as Yuna's second-in-command. "Then let's go save a galaxy that never wanted us." Yuna turned to her crew. "All ships, jump to the Kellos system. Let's see what we're dealing with." The fleet jumped. Reality bent around them as they crossed light years in seconds. When they emerged, what they saw made even veteran soldiers go silent. Kellos was gone. The planet was still there, but it was dead. The oceans were empty basins. The forests were bare rock. The cities were dust. Everything that had made it a living world was stripped away, leaving only a gray corpse floating in space. And surrounding the planet were the harvesters. They were massive. Ships the size of moons, made of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. They moved slowly, deliberately, harvesting the last resources from Kellos before moving to their next target. Smaller ships swarmed around them like insects, carrying away metals and minerals. "Scanning now," said Day from the engineering station. "Captain, these things they're not just ships. They're factories, mobile construction platforms. They're making more of themselves." "How many are there?" "At Kellos, maybe 200 capital ships, thousands of smaller vessels. And they're not just here. Sensors show harvester fleets at 4 other systems. They're spreading out, consuming everything." Yuna felt a chill. This wasn't an invasion. This was an infestation. The harvesters would keep spreading, keep building, keep consuming until there was nothing left. "Do they know we're here?" "They know. They're turning toward us." The harvester ships began to move, their weapons powered up, and the space around them flickered with energy fields. They didn't communicate, didn't send warnings, they just came. "All ships, battle formation," Yuna ordered. "Launch fighters. Prepare weapons." The human fleet spread out. The carriers launched their fighter wings. Thousands of small, fast ships piloted by humans who had trained their whole lives for this moment. One of those pilots was Nari, a young woman barely 20 years old who was already the best pilot in the fleet. "Blue Wing, this is Nari. All fighters, follow my lead. Let's show these machines what humans can do." The fighters screamed toward the harvester fleet. The massive alien ships opened fire, filling space with energy beams and missiles. Several human fighters exploded immediately. But the rest kept coming, weaving through the defensive fire with impossible precision. "They're not programmed for this," Nari said over the comms. "They're used to fighting ships that follow predictable patterns. But humans? We don't follow patterns." She proved it by diving under a harvester capital ship, flying between two of its weapon platforms, and firing torpedoes directly into its engine core. The explosion was massive. The first harvester ship began to break apart. "That's one," Nari laughed. "Who wants two?" The battle erupted across the Kellos system. The human dreadnoughts exchanged fire with the harvester capital ships. Explosions lit up the darkness. Ships died on both sides. But the humans had something the harvesters didn't expect: unpredictability. "They're adaptive," Dr. Hai reported from the Indomitable's science station. "Every time we use a tactic, they learn from it. But they're machines. They think in logic and patterns. We need to stay random, chaotic." "Chaos is what humans do best," Yuna said. "All ships, abandon formation, free combat, make it up as you go." It was the opposite of everything military doctrine taught. But it worked. The harvesters couldn't adapt to tactics that had no pattern. They couldn't predict enemies who didn't follow rules. The human fleet tore through them like wolves through sheep, but the harvesters had numbers. For every ship destroyed, two more appeared. They were building faster than humans could kill them. "Captain, we have a problem," Hyun said. "Long-range sensors show more harvester fleets approaching. Big ones. If they all converge here, we'll be overwhelmed." Yuna gritted her teeth. They were winning this battle, but they couldn't win the war. Not like this, not ship to ship. "We need to hit them at the source," Dr. Hai said. "They're factory ships. If we can destroy those, they can't replace their losses. Those factory ships are at the center of their formation, surrounded by escorts. Then we'll have to punch through." Yuna looked at the tactical display. It was suicide. The factory ships were too well defended. Any assault would cost hundreds of ships, thousands of lives. But if they didn't do it, the harvesters would consume the galaxy. "Commander Hyun," she said quietly, "prepare for a breakthrough assault. Target the factory ships." "Captain, if we commit to that attack—" "I know, but it's the only way." Before they could launch the assault, a new voice crackled over the comms. It was Ambassador Tay, broadcasting from a council ship. "Human fleet, this is Ambassador Tay. The council has agreed to a temporary alliance. We're sending reinforcements. Hold your position." "The council?" Yuna was stunned. "After everything?" "They saw the battle. They saw what you could do. Quyeth convinced them that humanity is their only hope." Tay's voice softened. "We're not alone anymore, Yuna. Other species are coming to help. They're scared. They're not soldiers, but they're coming." Across the sector, council ships began to arrive. They weren't warships. Most were cargo vessels, science ships, even civilian transports. But they were there. Hundreds of alien species who had feared and hated humans for 2 centuries, now fighting alongside them. "This is Captain Yuna to all forces," she said. "Human and council. We're going to hit their factory ships. This will be the hardest fight any of us have ever faced. Some of us won't make it back." She paused, looking at her crew. at Aaron and Day and all the others who had followed her into this war. But we're fighting for something bigger than ourselves. We're fighting for every living thing in this galaxy, every species, every world. So let's make this count. The combined fleet charged forward. Human warships and council vessels, side by side, rushing toward the Harvester factory ships. The real battle was about to begin. The space around the Harvester factory ships was a storm of fire and death. Una watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as her fleet crashed into the enemy line. Explosions lit up the darkness like dying stars. Ships from a dozen species fought together, their weapons tearing into the Harvester defenses. But the machines fought back with cold efficiency. Every second, more ships died. "We're losing too many," Hyun said beside her. "At this rate, we won't reach the factory ships." "We have to." Yuna's hands gripped the command console. "If we fail here, they'll spread across the galaxy. Everything dies." On her screen, she saw Nari's fighter wing weaving through the defensive fire. The young pilot was leading 40 fighters toward one of the factory ships, dodging energy beams that would have vaporized them in an instant. "Blue Wing, we're going in!" Nari's voice was calm despite the chaos. "Follow me through the gap!" The fighters dove between two Harvester capital ships, flying so close to their hulls that collision warnings screamed. Behind them, 3 fighters exploded as they couldn't make the tight maneuver, but the rest made it through, emerging directly in front of a factory ship. "Fire everything!" Nari ordered. Torpedoes slammed into the factory ship's hull. Explosions rippled across its surface. For a moment, Una thought they had succeeded. Then the factory ship's shields kicked in, absorbing the damage. "It's not enough," Nari said. "We need something bigger." "Pull back," Una ordered. "We'll bring in the dreadnoughts." "No time, Captain." Nari's fighter turned back toward the factory ship. "Blue Wing, get clear. I'm going to try something stupid." "Nari, what are you—" But Nari was already accelerating. Her fighter screamed toward the factory ship at maximum speed. At the last second, she fired all her remaining torpedoes and ejected. The pilotless fighter slammed into the exact spot where the torpedoes had weakened the shields. The explosion was massive. The factory ship's shields collapsed. Its hull cracked open like an egg. Secondary explosions rippled through its interior as its own manufacturing systems went critical. "Get everyone away from there!" Una shouted. The factory ship exploded. The shockwave caught dozens of nearby ships, human and Harvester alike. When the light cleared, the factory ship was gone, and so were the Harvester escorts that had been protecting it. "One down," Hyun said. 5 more to go." "And Nari—" Rescue ship picked up her pod. "She's alive, asking for a new fighter." Una allowed herself a small smile. Then she turned to the tactical display. 5 factory ships remained. They were pulling back, trying to protect themselves. The Harvesters had learned that humans were dangerous. They were adapting. "Dr. Hai," Una said, "the Voss weapon, is it ready?" Dr. Hai looked up from her station. Her face was tired and scared. "It's ready. But, Captain, if we use it, the energy discharge could damage our own ships, and there's no guarantee it will work. The Voss never finished testing it. But it might work. It might destroy every Harvester in the system, or it might do nothing." Dr. Hai hesitated. "Or it might tear a hole in space-time and kill us all." Una looked at the battle. Human ships were dying. Council vessels were breaking apart. For every Harvester they destroyed, 2 more appeared. They were losing. Slowly, inevitably, they were losing. "How do we deploy it?" "Someone needs to fly it into the center of the Harvester fleet, close enough that the weapon can reach all their ships, then activate it manually." "That's a suicide mission." "Yes." Una looked at her crew, at Aaron, who was just a boy when this started, at Day, who had kept their ship running through impossible situations, at all the people who trusted her to lead them. "I'll take it," Commander Hyun said quietly. No, you're needed to command the fleet. The fleet can survive without me. But you? Hyun put his hand on her shoulder. You're the one who heard the distress call. The one who crossed the border when no one else would. The one who reminded us what it means to be human. The galaxy needs you alive. Hyun, besides, he smiled, I'm old. I've had a good run. Let me end it doing something that matters. Before Yuna could argue, Admiral Thexan's face appeared on the screen. The Kryn officer looked battered. His armor was scorched. Behind him, his bridge was on fire. Human fleet, this is Admiral Thexan. My ship is crippled. We're venting atmosphere. I'm ordering my crew to evacuate. He paused. I was wrong about your species. I thought you were dangerous. I thought you would destroy the peace we built. But I see now that peace without the strength to defend it is just waiting to die. Admiral, we can send rescue ships. No, listen to me. I have one working engine and enough power for one final jump. Tell me where you need the Voss weapon delivered. I'll take it there. Yuna stared at him. This was the alien who had tried to arrest her, who had called humans monsters, who had spent his life keeping humanity contained. Why? She asked. Because you answered a distress call. Because when the galaxy needed heroes, you didn't hesitate. Thexan's eyes were fierce. And because someone should. Someone should answer. Hyun looked at Yuna, then he nodded. I'll go with him. He'll need help activating the weapon. Make it count, Yuna said softly. Always do. 10 minutes later, Thexan's damaged ship and Hyun's frigate jumped together into the heart of the Harvester fleet. The weapon was ready. A piece of Voss technology designed 50,000 years ago to fight the very machines that now threatened the galaxy. This is Commander Hyun. His voice crackled over the comms. To all human forces, to all council forces, to everyone who can hear this. We came from a death world, a planet that tried to kill us every day. We learned to survive by fighting, by adapting, by never, ever giving up. His ship accelerated toward the factory ships. Harvester weapons tore into his shields, but he kept going. So remember this. Remember that when darkness came, we stood against it. Remember that when the galaxy needed protecting, humans did it. Not because we're monsters, but because we're human. The weapon activated. Light filled the system. Pure white light that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The Harvester ships began to break apart. Their hulls cracked. Their systems failed. The light spread through them like fire through paper, destroying the machine intelligence that controlled them. One by one, thousands of Harvester ships went dark. When the light faded, Hyun's ship was gone. Thexan's ship was gone, but so were the Harvesters, every single one in the system, dead, drifting, silent. Scan for survivors, Yuna ordered, her voice breaking. Aaron checked his sensors, then shook his head. No life signs, they're gone. The bridge was quiet. Outside, the human and council fleets floated in the debris field. They had won. But the cost was terrible. Over the next 3 days, the remaining Harvester fleets were hunted down and destroyed. The weapon's resonance effect had damaged their network, making them vulnerable. The galaxy came together, species that had never spoken now fighting side by side. And slowly, system by system, the threat was ended. A month later, Yuna stood on Earth. She had retired, as she promised herself she would. The memorial wall stretched for miles, covered in names. Human names, alien names, beings from 100 different worlds who had died fighting the darkness. Commander Hyun's name was there. Admiral Thexan's name was beside it. They'll remember you, Yuna whispered. Both of you. I promise. Above her, the sky was full of ships. Human ships and council ships, no longer separated. The treaty was gone. The borders were gone. Humanity was finally part of the galaxy, not as monsters or Deathworlders, but as equals, as heroes. Ambassador Tay walked up beside her. He looked older now, tired, but also hopeful. "The Council wants to make you an admiral," he said, "joint command of the new defense fleet." "I'm retired." "That's what I told them," Tay smiled. "But they insisted I ask." Yuna looked at the memorial wall, at all those names. "What if the harvesters come back? Then we'll fight them again. Together this time. And if we lose, then at least we'll lose fighting for something that mattered." Far away, in the darkness between galaxies, a single harvester probe drifted through the void. It was damaged, barely functional, but it was alive. Slowly, it began to repair itself, to rebuild, to send out signals to others of its kind. The war was over, but the harvesters were patient. They could wait.